Hi, my name is Oliver Schrock Collins, and I'm a student at Canyon Crest Academy. At this time, we would like to thank the Orange County Register of the Southern California News Group for sponsoring our upcoming panel about coping with the pandemic. This panel is being moderated today by Ms. Jamie Alexander, an American online TV personality, model, host, and producer who formerly worked at AfterBuzz TV. Ms. Alexander has been hosting for 10 years, everything from celebrity interviews, music video countdowns, red carpets, international tech shows, and her own online productions. Please welcome to our virtual stage, Ms. Jamie Alexander and the panelists for Coping with the Pandemic.
What's going on, everybody? I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for joining into this panel, Coping with the Pandemic. That was an amazing song and an amazing introduction. So shout out to everybody there. But we're about to jump into a brilliant conversation because I have an amazing panel with me, along with some celebrity input from Kanoa Igarashi and Mark Sanchez. So you're definitely going to stick around and ask yourself, how have you been coping with the pandemic? So let's dive into this incredible conversation. As you know, I'm your host, Jamie Alexander. Look at my amazing panel. I have an amazing panel with me, and we're just going to start right here. So what have you done or are about to do that would never have happened if not for the pandemic? Alana, let's start with you.
I was definitely able to focus more on myself and where I want to go after high school. And so it just kind of gave me the time to kind of become a bit more, I think, like my own individual and not so much as like a junior who's trying to do as much as they can for college.
Tejas, let us know. How are you feeling?
I've just been able to focus more on myself, and throughout the last year, I've been able to really focus on what I want to do after college, and kind of the opposite of what Alana's done. I've kind of seen myself as more successful than I have been in the past, and I've realized that what I've done is impressive in some circumstances, and I've been able to work harder to get into the college that I wanted, to do the things that I want to do in life.
You know what? That's a really great point, to be able to honor and celebrate the things that you were able to get done, especially under these circumstances. Like, can we just give him a little collective silent clap here? Because that is amazing. Now, as you know, we have world-renowned professional surfer, and he has a comment and a question for you guys too. So why don't we jump into that and then dive into his question?
Well, for me, I've learned a lot about myself over the last few months and over this pandemic. Well, there's a lot of negatives obviously around us, but it's really important to focus on the small positives and also the big positives. I wake up every morning, and when I'm at breakfast, I just say how thankful I am to be here and to be safe. And I think if you optimize the little positives that you have all around you, it can turn into a big one. So let's stay positive, and we'll get through this together. What strategies have you guys used to cope with the pandemic?
That's a good question. What strategies have you guys used to cope with the pandemic? Why don't we start with you, Tejas?
So throughout the pandemic, I've really just been keeping in mind what I have. I'm safe, I'm healthy, my parents are job secure, and throughout the pandemic, I've been remembering the positive aspects and the things that have come to me because of the pandemic. And so I would say that that's one of the biggest things that has helped me cope with the pandemic.
Okay, those are a lot of amazing things to be grateful for. So congratulations for being able to identify that. Just like Kanoa said, it's really important to expound on the things that you're grateful for. And I'm so happy that you were able to do that. Lori, what are your thoughts?
Sure. So I was reading this incredible article published by the University of California, San Francisco recently, by the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. And it was focusing on drawing your attention to the things that you can control. One of the greatest downfalls as human beings is we tend to focus and put our efforts into the things that we cannot control. For example, this pandemic. It is not in our hands in the sense of we are not necessarily the healthcare workers out there giving their time and efforts every single day, but we can control wearing masks and being socially distant and making an effort to keep our family and ourselves safe during this very unprecedented time. And it's really important to focus on, well, am I staying off social media? Am I listening to the facts that are correct and have been fact checked? Am I listening to my inner self? Am I taking care of my mind and my emotional health? And I think that's something that we tend to lose sight on, and it's important to draw our focus back on the important things of our life.
Yes, very well put. All of those things. And, walking in the unknown is something that we've had to, it's not like we ever had control, right? But if anything showed us that we do not have control, it is the pandemic. So the way that you have honored that is really special, unique, and I think everybody can pull from that. So when it comes to strategies that you've used to cope with the pandemic, Alana, what do you have?
Just with the pandemic, it was really nice to just distract myself and get away from reality sometimes. And so I was reading a lot, and I got really into Korean drama, and it was just kind of stepping back from reality, because what Lori said, we can't really control it. It's it was out of our hands, and obviously you can do things personally to make a difference, but there's only so much that you can do. And so, yeah, definitely reading and watching Korean drama, and then also just getting all of the stress off my chest, by ranting to friends or friends and family and whatnot. It's really helpful for me personally, and I'd imagine for other people as well. It's nice to just let it all go.
I want to go on to Isabella and find out from her, what strategies are you using to cope with the pandemic?
So I actually thought it was really interesting that Tejas and Kanoa had mentioned gratitude, because me personally, I started a gratitude journal. And I think taking that step back, and how Lori mentioned that there's so much we can't control, it can cause a lot of anxiety. And actually, neurologically speaking, there's something in your brain that's connected to when you're grateful. It causes less anxiety. So I started a gratitude journal, and I think that it really helped me just take a step back and realize I have so much to be grateful for. I have a roof over my head. I have a pantry and a fridge stocked full of food that I can get whenever I want it. There's water bottles downstairs whenever I need. And I think that it's really helped me, because I feel like in some scenarios you can feel oh, I don't have a lot because I'm doing school from my bedroom. But in reality, you do have a lot. And taking that step back and realizing what you have can help relieve a lot of that stress.
I completely agree. I'm with you, Isabella. I find myself thanking Divine for so many things that I never thought of, like my toes and my eyeballs, and the fact that my brain works. When it comes to gratitude, you can get down to the little minuscule things that you might not think of on a regular day, but when you really get into it and say it out loud, it really does feel good and relieve anxiety. I love that. So as we continue this conversation, I want to dive into a second question from one of our guests. He's an ex-NFL quarterback. And Mark Sanchez has a question for you guys.
We've seen a lot of temporary change due to coronavirus. Which of these changes do you think or hope will remain permanent?
That's a good one. Out of these changes, which ones do you hope remain permanent? Lori, let's start with you.
Sure. So I think that one of the most important aspects or changes that I've seen as a result of this pandemic has been the environmental changes. People are significantly more cautious of the effects that they're having on their environment. Recently, the LA Times released an incredible article discussing the carbon emissions and how it has decreased in 2020 as a result of less travel. So I think if individuals have the opportunity to work from home, they should, because at the end, we're making a significant environmental impact in the world. And as we've seen in many articles released and different discussions amongst our politicians, the climate is one of the greatest issues facing our country and facing the world. And if we don't take care of it now, or we didn't take care of it a long time ago, we're not going to have this incredible planet that we live and we thrive on.
That is such a great point. And I have to be honest, I haven't thought much about it, but you're so right. I remember a friend mentioning they were driving down one of the streets in LA. I can't remember, but they were in awe that they could finally see the ocean again from the street, which was really hard to see when everybody was on the hustle and bustle. So I really hope that is something that post-pandemic, we kind of are more mindful about. I love it. Alana, what do you have to add to that?
So as like a proponent for just all around healthy mental, like a mental health, I love the fact where of like people taking up a bunch of different quirky like new hobbies and stuff. I think that's really great just to get away from like the daily 9 to 5 job or school, and just the family and social and like world pressure. I think it's really special just to come home and take care of a bunch of plants or knit while talking to your friends or something. And I also really, really hope that I think pretty easily. I don't think I need to hope for this, but there's definitely going to be an emphasis on human to human connection and relationships and whatnot. And I might be a little bit biased just because I have no social media, but pre-pandemic, there was definitely obviously like online friends and online relationships. Totally great, totally fine. But I love the fact that not taking for granted the people in your lives that you can like meet up with physically, like friends at school and whatnot. And so, yeah, I hope that remains like a special thing that people appreciate.
Absolutely. I completely agree. It really did shift the way we value things and the way we honor what's important to us. That's for sure. Tejas, why don't we go to you? What do you hope that will remain permanent, after the pandemic?
So as much as me and my generation hate online schooling, I think that something that should remain permanent is online schooling, because you could potentially save millions of dollars on infrastructure that you pay for schools and for desks and for smart boards. And I think that online school is definitely the way to go, because it's more inclined on how the student wants to learn and what their particular interests are in, rather than what the schools are deciding to teach the students.
Great point. That is a great point. I love to hear it. You guys are coming up with the good stuff. Might I add too, I know this is a lot of shifts for you guys, but I hope everyone out there, including you guys, are giving yourselves grace. This is different. This is hard. This is something new. And don't be too hard on yourself. We're all navigating these changes, even the adults. Fatima, how are you feeling? What are you hoping will remain after the pandemic?
So the three main things that I would want to prolong after the pandemic is probably, like a few people mentioned earlier, a reduced impact on the climate and the cleanliness and our resilience to change.
Yes, I love that. And you don't know what your resilience to change is until you're challenged to change. So the good stuff is being built up in us here, guys. We actually have another question from Kanoa Igarashi, and I'd love to jump into it because it's social media related. So why don't you take it away, Kanoa?
We all know that social media has its drawbacks, but when it comes to the pandemic, what kind of positive impacts can social media have for all of us?
I love to talk about the positive side. Give it to me, Lori. What do you think? What are some of the positive parts about influence that social media can have?
Yeah, thank you, Kanoa, for that incredible question. I think that the positive aspects that social media can have on our population and our generation that chooses to use social media is that we stay not only connected, but significantly informed. One of the greatest Instagram accounts that I personally follow, called Students Against COVID-19, is a social media account started by Harvard School of Public Health that empowers students with the accurate information to tackle COVID-related stress imposers or challenges that you may face, not only as a student, but also maybe as a worker, as a daughter, as a parent, whatever it may be. And it's vital to understand that the information that you are reading online is accurate and is fact checked, because at the end of the day, when you are speaking on behalf of, for example, in this panel, I want to provide the most accurate information to the audience and to my fellow panelists and to you, of course. And I think it's important to understand that when we come together as a community online and we share this support for one another, we're not only empowering ourselves, but we're empowering the young individual that may be influenced or is influenced by the information that they're seeing online.
Absolutely. And it can be very helpful to be able to find those resources. How are you feeling, Tejas?
So in addition to like educating ourselves, I think that social media has played a big role in just entertaining us and keeping us entertained during the pandemic. And with that, like it goes even further. Like, and I think one of the bigger parts of keeping us entertained has to do with education. Like for example, the Black Lives Matter movement and politics in general has just gained a huge traction among my generation and younger generations, and has really provoked a lot of thoughts and discussions between opposing parties and opposing ideas. And so I think social media has done a really good job at filling up people's free time during the pandemic.
Absolutely. We're seeing so many of the TikTok challenges and all of these things going on. I've been entertained, so I know you've been entertained. What about you, Isabella?
I would also have to agree. I think that social media is can sometimes be that connection that we're missing. Now, of course, it doesn't fill the void of not being able to hang out with your friends and things like that. But I think that in a lot of ways, the challenges or things like that that everybody's doing, it's something that it's something that we're all going to do and that we're all participating in. And it's something to show to the outside world that you're not in this alone. It's not just you in your house and you can't leave and everybody else is able to go outside. No, we're all in this together and we're all going to get through this together.
Isabella, that is amazing. That is a strong word, and that is the perfect thought to end this segment. You guys have learned so much about yourself, so much about what's valuable to you, and learning other ways to not only navigate life and changes, but how to connect with each other and others through this thing. So I really commend you. You guys are brilliant. You're amazing. And this has really been such a valuable conversation. So those of you watching at home, I hope you've enjoyed this segment, Coping with the Pandemic. I know we sure did, and continue to enjoy the summit. Thank you for listening.